Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar today. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is George Byrne. I'm a UAV strategist here at Coptrz, and we are joined with Victoria Ross. Sadly, is unable to join us, but she is here in chat for any questions you may have. And we're also delighted to announce that we're here with Duncan Turner from Severn, Trent Water, who will be looking at their current applications, what they're doing in the market at the moment, and what they've got planned for the future. But just a quick one before we do go on. Just wanted to say thank you for the Institute of Water just for introducing us and organising this great webinar. Obviously, they got around about 2,000 members nationally. So if you've got any need to get in touch, please get in touch with Victoria. All her information will be provided at the end. And yeah, let's hopefully have a really good webinar and have a good, insightful couple of hours. So essentially today what we're going to be looking at is the utilisation of UAV technology in the water industry. So the full utility sector, from mapping to inspection to survey and everything in between. So today, as I said, my name is George Byrne. I primarily head up the inspection, utilities and the power generation market here at Coptrz. I'm joined by Duncan Turner. So Duncan, if you just say hello.
Hi everyone.
Fantastic. Just good to hear that the sound's now working. I've also got Steve Blair, who's sales manager here at Coptrz, who will be answering any questions at the end. Before we do go on, if you've got any technical issues with sound or video, try refreshing the page. That usually works, and you should be fine. But any questions below, we do have a questions tab, and to the side we have a chat, which is quite good. Just to let us know where you're calling from and that you can hear us. So without further ado, we'll move on to who Coptrz are. So essentially, Coptrz, we've been around for just over 4 to 5 years now. We've helped beyond 1,000 organisations to become drone operators here in the UK. We really do pride ourselves on being a full 360 drone solution provider. So that's working with companies, looking at applications and devising scenarios where they can use that drone technology to create results. We partnered with some of the largest companies in the world, from DJI to LiDAR USA to Flyability to Winkler, to enable those companies with the best technology possible. And that's something we really do see as a real key stakeholder in the industry, as leading experts in this industry. As you can see, we're quite well partnered with lots of companies here, both on the manufacturing side, but also our industry leading companies who are using drones actively. And one of those, who I'm delighted to announce, is Severn Trent. And we'll be going on to talk about Duncan's application, what they're doing at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll pass you over to Duncan now. We're going to go through Duncan's slides. We're going to look at what Severn Trent are doing at the moment. And then we're going to have a look at drones in general in the industry at the moment. We're going to have a really good Q&A at the end. So save all your questions for the end or stick them in the bottom, and hopefully we'll get through as many as possible. So bear with me. I am just going to upload the first set of slides. So yeah, hopefully everyone can see that. I'm going to mute myself now, but Duncan Turner, over to you.
Thank you very much, George. Yeah, pleasure to be here this afternoon. So so I am the drone team lead at Severn Trent Water, and I manage all of the flights across the business, whether that's our internal flights or contractor flights. And we have been now flying for 3 years with the support of Coptrz. And yeah, it's really, this sort of presentations give you guys a bit of an introduction into what we do. And this, I'd say, is well, it's called our new perspective, because we've definitely gained a new perspective from what we've been doing with the drones. So thank you, George. Let's jump right in. So we'll go through some basic improvements. So safety is a huge thing for Severn Trent, and everything we do is based around safety and what we can do to improve it, reducing the number of accidents on the sites. So it just seems like a really good use of drone technology to be able to get into that field and start reducing any sort of potential safety incidents. So picture there at the bottom is one of our dams, and you imagine doing your inspection dangling off at the end of a rope halfway down the dam, possibly not the safest thing in mid-Wales with the wind howling and everything else. So getting the drone out there to do those initial improvements is just like going to improve all our safety stats. That includes as well, so anything working at height, anything over 2 meters, we've got lots of tanks and other sort of dangerous areas we can use the drone with as well to look at all of these. So with the number of assets Severn Trent own, already there's a huge market for us to go out and do some inspections. Reducing downtime. So this is really looking at sort of what we can do to keep the business running as usual, so not having an impact on the business, getting out and do those inspection pieces and getting the eyes on to that sort of critical piece of infrastructure which might have failed, and looking at how we're going to go about that repair process. That has the knock-on effect of reducing costs. So immediately in perhaps one of the in our legacy buildings, if we don't need to go in and scaffold it immediately, then that's a potential huge saving. But not only that, there's lots of other areas that we can sort of reduce costs with. Scaffolding is just one example there. But while we're in that, we can do some, and the sort of the hidden thing is the value add. What else can we do while we're doing that, where we've displaced those scaffolding costs? So we may have gone in looking at just for the asbestos in that building, but actually we've done the inspections of the steel work and the other roof structure as well. So we've got that sort of added benefit from that. The last main area for us, well, I say not the last, but one of many, is precision data. It's just phenomenal amount of data, precision data that you can pull from the drone, producing sort of all of these, precise locations of assets, and then being able to feed that back into our mapping systems has, again, been a huge benefit for us. Next slide, please, George. So how do we go about this? So we use a couple of different systems to capture data. So we've got sort of your traditional RGB camera, and that get used a lot in the sort of media side of things, construction areas, and sort of that visual aspect, but also in photogrammetry as well. So every site we go out to now that we need to do any work at, we look to map that site, and that's got some sort of added benefits which I'll come on to later in the talk. And some of the guys who sort of benefit from what we're doing could be some of the pipe route surveys, ecologists, and certainly incident support. Being able to get the eyes on and produce those maps for the incident teams has been a really valuable sort of way to use photogrammetry. Thermal's another large area that we are sort of utilising, looking at that sort of shifted spectrum into the red end and trying to understand what this means for us. A lot of our equipment runs at like a variety of different temperatures, so that's already given us a benefit or a means to use thermal to go out and understand sort of what's happening on the assets out on site. The other area which we've just or started to use more and more is the NDVI camera, and we're looking at, certainly for our agricultural side of the business, where Severn Trent have got a huge amount of farmland where we can go out and bring benefits from using the sensor into how we manage that land. So that's, again, another quite exciting area that we've started to explore. And all of this data feeds back into our sort of GIS or mapping systems, and we collect in all sorts of information from these cameras, and it sort of feeds into the various systems to give us that bit of asset intelligence.
Fantastic.
So let's dive right in and think about projects. So you may, well, Severn Trent have got a huge number of projects running across the estate, and it's really good to be able to utilise the drone to capture sort of the projects and find out what's happening on those projects. So when perhaps a project manager comes to me and describes what he wants to do, I'm really thinking very differently from the outputs that he's asked for to where it's going to go. But I can break that down into three main stages. So initially, we've got the start of that project, or the pre-planning, perhaps the feasibility. We can go out there, map the ground, and look at what's actually out there, or the start of that project, and how we're sort of handling it and how things are developing. The next stage is your sort of progress checks through the project, making sure the project's being delivered as we expect. Any changes to the project can now be mapped or looked at. And it's sort of a good example is this, or the pictures in the image on the slide. You can see an early stage where we've just broken into the ground. A little bit further on, where we're checking the foundations and how that's been put in to make sure that they're right, and all of these maps are scaled as well, so we can get some accurate data from them. And then we've got a picture of the almost complete final end of the project, so we can then go through and do inspections on the different parts of the building, make sure again it's been built to the right level or as we'd expect. Perhaps we're doing a guttering check-in, make sure all that's in place, looking for anything unexpected across, and then we'll collect all that asset information and add that into the database. I often get requests, not just from the projects, across the business, and this is sort of where you get a bit of value add. So I had a chap just last week asking me about this particular project, saying, oh, have you got any of the early build photos on that? We're doing a bit of work around the foundations and how they were constructed. So we pulled out that valuable asset information and sent that across to him, where he's been able to utilise that for the work he was doing. My biggest tip, I think, or my learnings on this is really to have, as your drone team, have that bit of foresight to understand, as I say, what the project is trying to achieve. But so you're understanding the scope, then you're considering how the project, or you're going to get scope creep in that and how it's going to change. And then when you arrive at site, they'll be like, oh yeah, actually, can you just fly down the road and capture that bit of critical building as well for us, which they probably didn't ask for originally. So it's worth sort of asking these questions and trying to understand what they're doing and how that's being put together. But also understand as well what's not been asked of you. So if you're going to see through the project life cycle, you're going to try and predict then those steps or those things which you weren't asked for, but you know is coming up. So, for example, that once the road's been constructed, they're going to want a map of the site or something. But they've not asked for it. They just said, oh, we just want a video of this particular site. But yeah, with that foresight, you've baked that into your plans, and you're prepared to go out and to capture the right information to give the business that added value. Next slide, George. So, looking at our projects, we've got Severn Trent, large company, we've got a lot of projects running across the business, and the map in the background showing some of the flights that we've conducted on some of these projects around the Midlands. And as you can see, there's an awful lot of them and an awful lot of flights to sort of plan and sort of get eyes on. And then this is sort of critical for the business. It's giving them really important information, eyes on to what is going out. So we're that eye in the sky for the business who aren't able, especially at the moment, can't get out and travel because of COVID, to be able to understand what's happening. So, for example, the execs or STEC want to see what's happening with their projects. They want to, they'll perhaps have a monthly or 6 monthly request for project updates so they can see exactly where it's gone on. The project managers will be interested in this information as well, see what's happening with their projects, and it gives them a reference point on that particular day to then go back to if needed. To
me, Duncan, it really seems like you're really utilising drones on a lot of projects, a lot of different sites, a lot of different applications. Is that what you're seeing? So a lot of internal, external inspection surveys. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely. So we've because of the volume of work, we do a lot. It's mostly internal, but there is requests coming in externally as well to get involved with other project work. So we may have sort of really got to grips with a certain way of working to do a certain particular project work. And then through our partners that they'll request us to come in and do some work for them as well. Because now we've sort of built on that skill set, and the pilots can then go out and train or show that particular business or partner on how to conduct those type of operations. So yeah, we're very keen to get out there and assist other businesses as well from what we've learned. It's always good to do.
Yeah, bit of collaboration never hurt anybody. Yeah, it's good to
yeah, so being able to understand your projects as well by mapping them out and getting a sort of a heat map on your flights and things, very useful tool to be able to see. So it's making sure you're collecting your flight data in as well, and sort of building on that. And so sort of what I'd suggest is always, once you've got in there and stuck in, your team's going to be really busy getting out or wanting to get out and fly, but make sure they build in a bit of free time so they can spend a bit of time developing the pilot yourself as a pilot, or you've got that bit of opportunity to perhaps get on a training course or a bit of upskilling as well to develop what you're doing. So you might pick up, you might feel like you want to specialize in thermal or something. And so you've got that bit of extra time to be able to develop in that area. And always never book your diary completely full, because you'll always get the phone call saying, oh, can you come out next week and do a flight for me? So those unexpected flights always creeping in. So just, as I say, building that free time, it'll never be wasted. Don't book your calendar 5 days a week, because it's a hiding to nothing. So let's have a look at some of the facts. So far, our longest pipe route survey to date is 11.5 kilometres. This is over in Leicester. And it was a fantastic challenge to get out and try and understand the sort of how you would go about collecting that data across such a large area, ready for the feasibility for a new pipe route to go in. And, huge benefit on this is that they're able to change the route, because they've instead of getting single points along that route from a survey, they've now got 50, 100, 400 meters wide stretch, which they can now adjust that pipe route to get the absolute best route for the new pipe.
So just on that, Duncan, you said it's 80 hours of inspection video. That's not directly related to that pipeline survey, is it?
No. So it would have been a lot of images.
I was going to say, a lot of processing. But on the pipeline, how long would that have taken you to do with a drone, and compare it to sort of the use of a traditional method of survey? What's the trade-off?
So we were once we got up to speed, we were seeing about a 20% increase on like for like time, but actually the amount of data we were capturing was 1,000 times as much, because, as I say, instead of just getting single points along that particular route, we're able to catch such a wide piece of that particular landscape, which has added that benefit, as I say, to the planning piece. And when you're on the ground in a lot of these areas, you can't see over the hedge, you can't see, what's on the other side of the riverbank, but being able to model all that data has been really useful for our design teams. And then providing them with more intelligence about what the landscape is actually like. So it really adds on because you can download the sort of national height data for the land, accurate I think about to 2 meters, but then this really adds to it, and you can get exactly then what you need for the project, whether it's 50 mil or 20 mil across your pipe survey. So
2,300 miles flown, is that in total? Because that's
that's in total. That's
brilliant
mileage, but
clocking up
blew my mind a little bit on how far we've flown, but the drones have really come a long way. So it's
good stuff.
It's just some fun facts, really.
Yeah. And obviously on to data usage, how you actually interpreting that and giving it like an end product.
So it's all about the data, and this is what we fly the drones for. So it's a bit of a project or life cycle, should I say, represented in this image. So the way the water would flow through this unit is sort of within similarity to what we do with our data. So we start with our planning, and obviously we need to pull in that asset information. So we can pull in some asset information from our GIS systems to gain understanding on where the pipes are, where the asset might be, and trying to sort of build that plan in. So it's really critical. So it's not a one-way process is what I'm trying to say. It's two-way. So we're pulling that information from GIS to assist us with that planning phase. And yeah, as I say, finding our pipe, because it sometimes is easier said than done, and that can, depending on how old that pipe design was when it went in, it may vary. So we need to take that into consideration. As I say, it gives us the locations of the assets, and then that allows us then to, once we've got that plan, to go out, fly it, capture that data, and that can then be sent across to our design team. So our design team uses a lot of our data, and it's really useful, whether it's for the pipe surveys or inspection work. And then they can build that into what they're doing, and gives them an understanding. So the guys in the design center, an understanding of how they're going to utilize that, or whatever they're going to do, give them that sort of extra information on what's going on. We also collect a condition of many assets. So we hear the term digital twin. So we try and digitize these assets to understand really the status of it. So, for example, like a good one here is we might be out on site, we'll see some flat roofs, we'll go and survey those while we're out on site, so we're getting a bit of value add. We can then RAG status them to give what we think is the status of it, and then hand that over to the local team. So for some of the flat roofs that we look at, might house some of the electrical equipment on site. So if they collapse, could take out thousands and thousands of pounds worth of equipment. And just by having the drone up there, we've spotted that we've got leaves in the guttering which could flood the roof. So we can apply the right status to that. It's given us that intelligence as well to sort of understand the assets. As I say, it's the location of these assets. They may not be exactly where you think they are. We can go and confirm that, and also the status of them. Is anything likely to so trees have overgrown or likely to fall on that? You can pick up all this information from that survey, which a traditional survey where you perhaps just be looking at the actual condition of the roof instead. Now, knowledge, this, to me, is absolutely key. So the knowledge gained from all of the work you're doing out on site is key across, not only for the business, but you've got people in the business who are going to use this for whatever projects they're working on, and also in so many sort of unthought of ways, which I'll sort of touch on later as well. But you're probably going to get the project teams using this.
You guys, we've had conversations in the past where it's your knowledge, it's your information that you're securing, not externally, not bringing in people. But obviously that has its benefits, but it's you because the systems, the plants that you're working on. Absolutely, George. It is absolutely key, and it's getting the right people in to do the survey. So we've got our own internal team where we try and conduct a lot of the surveys, and then that gives us a greater understanding, talking to the technical teams. So, for instance, we'll go out and do perhaps the job the first time, we won't understand it, so we'll get the technical teams to come out, give us a bit of training on what we're looking for and how to conduct that survey. We can then feed that back, and then when we're getting the right results, we'll then be confident to go out and make sure we're getting what the business need. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's having the sort of right people collecting the right data, and we're not opposed to having third-party flights. We manage a lot of those as well, where they've perhaps got a very specialist skill coming in or a specialist equipment to come in to do that particular piece of work for us. So that's always very exciting to get involved with that. And then using that data, we've recently run something called a hackathon.
and that's handing out the data to the business and saying, come along and like look at what we're doing, and you tell us where we think, or what, have a play with it and see what you can come up with. So the guys are coming back with like fly-throughs. One guy built a computer game of one of the sites, and somebody else had built or printed a 3D model of one of the dams. So it was like a really exciting use of things we hadn't considered, but by sharing the data with the right people and not sort of locking that down. Because I think your biggest failure is limiting access to the data. So where you think people don't need access to it. So all of those additional things where they're going to come up with some creative ideas, if they've got access to that data, they can work through that and then come back with some fantastic stuff. And again, that collab working really works really well with fresh eyes on this data. So yeah, it's a great way of working, really.
So obviously we're going to look at a couple of applications. We do have some slides which I've got, which goes into a bit more detail on the process of photogrammetry and LiDAR and the inspection side. But
yeah,
currently, yeah, just if we go through what you're currently using, currently doing at the moment, because obviously that model that you've created there, fantastic.
Yeah, so this is one of our dams. So we've got a lot of dams across the business, and what we've asked to do here is go out and look at the sort of cement in between the blocks. So we've went out to conduct a condition survey, and the beauty of photogrammetry is you're not only capturing the bad, but you're also capturing the good. So we've created that record at point in time, and you can see on the image there's some crosses and measurements and stuff. So we've got some really useful image information from that scaled model. But then we can go back in a year, 10 years, and with a dam probably 100 years to say what did it look like back then, and do the comparison of the data sets to really give us some really sort of like critical analytics on that particular asset. So yeah, it's been really good being able to model such large structures in such detail as well. And to do that, we're using a drone like the 210 with the SLR camera, and then feeding that through Pix4D. So it's it's worked very well for us.
Yeah, brilliant. Just before we do that, I'll just see if we can get up. So in a sense, for anybody who is questioning sort of the idea of Pix4D or photogrammetry, hopefully everyone can see this model going out there on the screen now. But this is using a Phantom 4 RTK actually. So pretty sort of intermediate basic survey equipment, and then obviously, as you say, this information can then be stored for years, and then you can do change over times, just as you said.
Yeah, and hand it over to your design team. You can build off that. There's all sorts of potential there, but yeah, being able to see the good as well as the bad on the model. And not having to abseil down the dam face at great height, again, in windy Wales, is a real positive. So, it's provided some really sort of new critical information for the business. So that's been really good. So one of the other areas that we, as I say, we're using quite a lot is the thermal photography. And it's that sort of shift in perspective and getting an idea of actually what your site looks like under those thermal conditions. For us, as I said, we've got a lot of sites with equipment which runs at different temperatures. So we often fly the thermal across the site just to understand what normal looks like. And in this case, you can see we've got 3 tanks. They're called digesters. And the one in the middle is in service and running as expected. The one on the right is just being brought back up to temperature after a service. And the one on the left has just been taken out. So we've got some valuable information there to say, oh yeah, what are our expected temperatures on this particular day, and what things look like. So when we fly across a site, when we're there, we can then use the drone to again do that value-added flight, which is key really to get some really interesting additional information which you can't see with your own eyes. So next slide, please, George.
Excellent.
Also, getting a different the thermal really helps us get a different perspective of what we're looking at, and like doing the thermal mapping has been really good. Running that across the site, it's only a quick map, but it gives you that sort of quick view of the site to say, oh yeah, it might be a problem here. And the more of these do, the better you get at spotting this issue or the issues. And we potentially run into some issues with the roofing here, which got fed back to the local teams to have a closer look at. But again, yeah, but the tip really is use your thermal camera as much as possible to understand, like, as I say, what normal looks like, and then you can start spotting those unexpected issues.
This is something which I find really exciting, because this is something which is, especially in the agricultural industry, is becoming a really big front runner. Yeah. So how are you guys using NDVI? So
this sounds slightly strange, but it's, if we look at the end result, it's to make savings for our customers. And you're thinking, oh, hang on a minute, how you do it flying across a field? But no. So what Severn Trent's got a lot of farmland, and we work with a lot of farmers in the catchment areas. So by flying the NDVI across their crops, we can then understand how the crops are performing, any areas which are underperforming. And instead of the farmer then using a consistent amount of fertilizer across the entire field or over fertilizing, they're now able to do pinpoint fertilizing in those areas. We can then feed back to see how those areas have been affected. We're also doing trials with different ways of planting, and then looking at the crop health with the NDVI to understand that. So then the knock-on result is we're using less fertilizer on the fields, which then less of that, say the nitrates, seep into the water, polluting the watercourses. So it's better for the wildlife already. Also, we're then extracting from that river further down. So our extraction process now has to use less intensive process to be able to clean that water, saving again more money, and then having that knock-on effect of saving that money for the customers. So it's like a really sort of innovative way of sort of using this technology to have those sort of multiple knock-on effects sort of along the watercourse. So yeah, it's been an exciting area to get into, and again, looking at those different spectrums and how things look has been good, and the data sets we're sort of producing from that and being able to feed back. So yeah, it's been a great way of like discovering new things.
Brilliant, great stuff. And then obviously asset management and mapping is a huge part of what you guys do, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, totally. So every site we visit, we asset map, because I don't know about you, wherever I go, the first thing I do is look at Google Maps. So I want to understand where I'm going, what it looks like. Can I park on the site? Where is that asset? Where's the manhole I'm looking at? So this is one of our typical sort of covered reservoir sites. And perhaps the guys turning up on site need to do some work on the second tank. Actually, they can't access that as easily. But now, because they've seen the asset map, they can then plan for that particular piece of work. So giving the guys across the business that sort of, again, eye in the sky, giving them the asset intelligence for that particular site, the map, the Google style maps, is such a powerful tool. The one guy said to me, well, it's quite a while ago now, when we first started doing this, he was, it's so good, such a powerful tool. He can measure the width of the roads to see whether his truck's going to fit down them, and then plan accordingly. So instead of sending the larger tankers, they can send the smaller tankers in, and they don't have all that wasted sort of resource then. It can be allocated better. Thinking for sort of, my last tip on that one was sort of thinking of uses across the business is make sure you're sharing these, because there's, as I say, so many ideas where people don't consider. If you think to your business's fire maps, perhaps, I don't know how up to date those are, but we're finding the sites now, once they've got the map, they're printed out, put all the new fire locations across it, and they've got a sort of a bang up to date map of the site to be able to then show people when they come in and do that site introduction. They can see exactly where things are. And the map perhaps is only a couple of months old as to something which has been drawn by hand or some other things. So it's been a really powerful tool.
Yeah, just updating maps and stuff in general, really useful tool we're finding.
So looking towards the future, and I think sort of it's a difficult place to sort of consider because of how fast the market's moving. I mean, we've come from when we first started, we were using Phantom 3, and now we're testing out the M300 and that's capabilities, and that's within 3 years. So it's sort of mind blowing how fast the market's moved. But one innovation which I think is going to have a large impact on drones is certainly 5G, and the way that then data can be handled. We can then consider live feeds back to the incident room. We've also potential, because we can get access to the data at speed and with low latency, we've got an opportunity then to do some processing on that data immediately. This then goes across to give us benefits of one of the regulations catch up, some remote piloting. Perhaps we'll have that capability in the coming future where we can operate a drone from a control room rather than actually being out on site. Certainly for us, incident support's key. Being able to get any incident reported and that data back to the incident room is a really powerful tool. And the faster we can do that, and 5G helps us unlock this, is going to be absolutely key for what we're doing. Then that data can be sort of analysed, and we can really understand that particular sort of site. And then it's got that knock-on effect then for increasing the sort of capabilities of what the drone team can do, increasing our KPI performance if we're fixing those leaks, because now we understand what that incident involved. So we've got increased KPI performance. And also the awareness of what's happening out on site for people back within the business, and just that speed of that data we can get back. So yeah, it's been like a really exciting new advent for us that we're testing. So yeah, exciting times. So this is one of the NAMs. This is a photograph of Vernwy, and it just by happened it had some blue netting at the bottom of the dam, which matches my text nicely. But so yeah, we love working with our sort of partner Coptrz. So I think we bring sort of mutual benefits to each other. So it's been really good, as I say, to share sort of what we're doing, and also have Coptrz come in and help us with our training requirements. Our flight qualifications, webinars, things like that. So building these sort of collabs is, I'd say, an absolute key step to building your drone business. Some of the other partners we get involved with out there, we get involved with Worcestershire Wildlife Environment Agency, and lots of preservation societies, because we've got a lot of historic buildings. So we do a lot of flights for them, and hand over that data to sort of aid our partnership and help or mutually benefit both of us. So yeah, some really powerful collaborations going on out there.
Yeah, but that's actually sort of a theme that we've had on a lot of our webinars, and what customers come back and say is the collaboration. It's not just collaboration with sort of manufacturers and partners, and it's companies working together to say, if you haven't got the technical expertise or you haven't got the ability, bring somebody in, and you produce a good job rather than sort of trying to wing it, basically. So I think that is that, especially in a growing industry as well. It's something that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And key people like Microsoft's a very good example. They've got a lot of powerful pre-built AI tools that we can use. And it's just sort of opening up, using their expertise, and sort of working with these guys. And another one we've worked with is Atkins to do some, or using their machine learning models on some of our models. And the data we're getting back is sort of really eye-opening, and the opportunities that's sort of starting to introduce. So yeah, rather than just sort of going out there on your own, it's, as I say, talk to people, get involved with the wider audience. And that's sort of where we sort of open up, and it's an offer really to all you guys, is to come and work with us and sort of do that discovery. So you may have some opportunities for us, and we might have some for you. So we're, as I say, we're always keen to work with lots of people. So yeah, it's just an exciting time to do that collab working. So it's almost, it comes full circle, and this is what it's all about. We've sort of ended up, and I've used the beginning picture again, but now we have really got our new perspective on data, and we're using it as a cycle. So we'll continually go through that cycle and build on what we're doing and keep learning, and that's giving us our new perspective and a much better idea of what's going on across the business and all of that such valuable asset data that we're collecting. So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
We're going to go through some slides which I've prepared. So for anybody who has sort of, maybe there's been some information that's gone over people's heads, this will helpfully go into a little bit more detail. We've got some videos that we'll show you, which I think we've actually got one from Lady Bower, where we took the wing trove and did that modelling. So just to show you some capabilities, but you know, we've gone through this with your slides, I know, but just to give a wider perspective, it's not just water, but drones are being utilised in, and obviously Duncan will have a hand in, you know, multiple other industries, especially along the board, but oil and gas, power gen and construction are some of the biggest ones apart from utilities and maintenance. But it's all about that data, and data is king at the end of the day, because as Duncan said, it's that storage, it's that identification, it's that change over time, which people are really interested in seeing. It's how new companies can then develop new ways of interpreting that data, which is really going to drive this industry forward. As Duncan said before, safety is crucial, but it's also the reduce of downtime and lower costs. And that's why I highlighted on the use of you doing that really long pipeline, because if you can do that quicker and you can get the same data and even more data, which is what you said, then why not use drones? And especially if you did for the lower cost, being on site for a shorter period of time. Now, really onto the key applications and benefits of drones. It is on that data, acquiring data from inaccessible places. And you mentioned slightly on some of the areas where you're flying internally, so flying indoors, and you're using the Helios system, aren't you, Duncan? Yeah.
And having a football-sized drone with the capability to fly sort of out or beyond visual line of sight internally has again opened up a lot of opportunities for us, and it's been a great way to carry out inspections in really difficult environments.
Yeah, and that's essentially what it is. It's giving we've obviously put inaccessible places, but it's dangerous areas at the end of the day as well. Obviously, working at height, working in confined space, and the use of thermal, laser, and we spoke about NDVI, open up, a world of new requirements that are out there. And one of which is, this was actually taken at Innovate East with Northumbria Water and Anglian Water, who obviously the Water Institute are associated with. And this is using a thermal camera. But as you can see on the images to the right, you've got all the humans, which are obviously a different heat temperature to the ground. But you've also got the heat temperature coming out the bottom of the tents. And it's just a different way to interpret information. Duncan went through it on, identifying what tanks are full, what are in operation, what aren't. But as we're saying, it's a data management and that data interpretation and identification. Now this was actually performed with you guys down at one of your sites with the thermal of the solar panels. So I'll just bring this up here, but it's a combination of both zoom capabilities and thermal. Now what was obviously seeing is looking at hotspots on the panels where there's maybe been a malfunction or there's been overheating of some way. But Duncan, do you just want to describe what we found and what it was down to? Just make sure you're not muted.
Using the thermal is a really easy way to identify on the panels where you've got failures, and these can either be caused by dirt or perhaps damage to the panel itself. And then you can we've got a maintenance plan, and we can then work out if it doesn't solve it by cleaning, that we can understand the efficiency of the panel and then when to replace it by the number of broken cells in each of the panels. So yeah, it's a really powerful, again, a really powerful tool to use to monitor all our solar farms.
Seeing there's specific panels which were out of service or overheating slightly, and that was due to bird poo, as we saw. You know, maybe not the most glamorous of inspections, but it's something that's got to be done to maintain these vital bits of equipment.
Yeah, and that adds all into the maintenance plan, so we can then work out the cycle for cleaning the panels to make sure they're staying in top-notch condition.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just quickly, something that's really hitting the market largely at the moment is that inspection side of things. It's using sort of like high-end, large megapixel cameras. So as you see here, this is a single image which is taken with a phase 1 camera, and having the ability to zoom in post-process and capture imagery as detailed as that from as far back as you are really negates the use of zoom cameras or low megapixel drones, purely on the fact that you don't have to get as close to anything anymore. And in the post-process, it's not a case of skipping through video and zoom video. You can just take one photo and then pan across that with a mouse on your desktop, and really create some really good 3D models, which obviously we saw when I played that last video. And for anybody who wasn't aware of what the point cloud data storage and 3D modeling process is called, it's photogrammetry. It's a process which has been around for years actually, but it's something which I know Duncan has been using very intensely over the last couple of years. But it's a way that you can, and I know you started off, as you said, with the Phantom actually, with doing 3D modeling, but it's a simple way of creating models and point cloud data sets, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Our first flight, I remember, we'd because there was no planning software back then, we'd had to plan out all of the grid lines effectively with a compass and pacing it out. So it worked incredibly well. The guy, we've got our dams team. I'll tell you what, next level, best in the world, I think, is they come out and helped us plan this. And the precision of the dams team was phenomenal, and got us a superb model of the dam by conducting a manual flight, capturing the images manually. So
fantastic.
Yeah, it was, amazing, really.
Excellent. And obviously with the likes of photogrammetry, it can also be applied to internal flight as well. So for any areas which are inaccessible, I mean, this was a model I just put through my laptop over the course of a couple of hours from the Helios 2. So the green line that you see on the left-hand side photos are just multiple photos all taken. And the software basically uses GPS, but in this case, just the photos, angles, colors, dimensions to piece together a visual representation of what you're seeing, which leads to LiDAR as well. And it's something that it is being used in the rail sector a lot, but it is really a powerful way of surveying. And yeah, we've obviously mentioned coastal because coastal erosion's large at the moment on the west coast, and that's how they're using it to identify this. But the data you can collect from LiDAR is good for foliage because it penetrates through the areas where photogrammetry would stop. So for the likes of riverbeds, cliff faces, coastal shores, that's something that's going to be really powerful moving into 2021, and we're already seeing a lot of companies at the moment utilizing it. With the likes of the DJI and the Matrice 300 coming out, they're bringing out their own LiDAR systems, which are all integrated. So really excited to see how they go and see what the data can be recorded on that. And I think this is one of our last slides, but I think one of the big things is that in minimizing downtime. Amount of times you're waiting around for certain teams to turn up, for people to get there and do their job before you can start. I mean, you mentioned it yourself, so you can be in the air in a matter of minutes and actually do a full site service. And you say about the area mapping, you do a full site map before there's even been anyone there, and you can obviously share that with other departments, guys getting onto the roads, parking, different areas of interest. And I think that's a real big part of drones. It's maybe not one of the biggest talked about, but it is one of the most obvious. And something which is also interesting as well is using the likes of photogrammetry, but for large scale modeling. And I know that you guys do a lot of large scale modeling, Duncan. So, I mean, this is just a quick point cloud taken from a flight with a Wingtra. But traditionally, what are you using? How are you finding it? Data processing speeds? Talk us through your workflow. That'd be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, so we've got, well, it goes a bit back to understanding what you're trying to map and how you're going to go about it. Certainly for our larger scale assets, we, even with the likes of the M210 RTK, we're struggling to map these because of the scale of them. So something like the Wingtra would be ideal for that area. And certainly the trial we did with that, I think we'd mapped the particular asset or dam in something like 7 flights, and we were able to do the same flight or cover the same area in the same detail in 1 flight with the Wingtra. So yeah, it was the benefit, the sort of time benefits of the Wingtra really sort of showed itself there. But our sort of like traditional or workflow for this is use whichever drone, I say, we's going to work best for this, to then go out and capture the detail of our particular site, whether it's just a basic survey or whether we're going to need to get a more detailed survey will depend on the camera we use. And then we feed all of our surveys through a Pix4D processing machine, and that's like a server grade machine to give or speed up processing times, because as you sort of the time taken to process these larger maps can almost go up exponentially with the size of the photo or the number of photos. So yeah, you do need to understand the scale of the maps to scale the machine accordingly to be able to process that within a reasonable time.
The speed between one drone compared to another drone, I mean, that's next level compared to maybe traditional methods as well. So we're moving at a really fast rate in the drone industry, which leads to sort of the final point. And I think you mentioned it. The first thing you said was the safety side. You mentioned obviously working at height, anything 2 meters, is that reduce of risk, eliminating confined space entry, working at height. And that may be misconstrued as eliminating working at height. Obviously, it's not. You still have to go up and do visual or manned inspections, but it gives you that tool, that enabler to have a better understanding, more information. And even now with COVID-19 and everything like that, it's eliminating reasons to enter a site. We've seen people using drones and doing sort of site inspections purely because they're not allowed onto site. So it's an insurance job, and it's a case of just going and making sure that everything's okay. And I have got a couple of videos. Well, I've got a video which is directly linked to these images taken from the Helios 2. But just for the viewers or anybody who is interested in obviously the internal side of drones, we've got a really good sort of inspection done with an Helios 2, which is a confined space drone, which in all sense of the word allows you to go into areas where are confined, which are dangerous, which potentially do have a risk to life. And as you can see, there's a lot of dust flying around there. Even respiratory apparatus would be needed if you put a human team in. And it's just open your eyes to different ways of using this technology, and I think that's what's really important. I'll let that run for a few more seconds. Any interesting Helios jobs you've done recently, Duncan? Anything you want to comment on?
Yeah, one of the most interesting ones I think we've done is up at Lady Bower, looking at the aqueduct there. And we were doing an inspection to look at the internal concrete structure to give the teams a really good understanding of the condition of that. And it's just a regular inspection, and they're all in really good condition, so that's good news. But it's a very powerful tool for being able to get into those, say, dangerous places where even we hire professional like rope teams to go in there. But yeah, they were considering actually how they'd approach it now with drone technology. So yeah.
Quite a Q&A now. Sadly, we don't have Victoria from the War Institute, but thank you very much for sorting that out. I hope it's all been really insightful. We are going to try and go for as many questions now, so don't leave just yet. And we're going to try and interrogate Duncan as much as possible, get all his trade secrets out of him. But we'll start off with sort of a standard one. I think this is something which is going to be, important to a lot of people watching. But in terms of the planning and the permission side of flying drones, especially for that pipeline inspection, what sort of work are you having to do pre-flight to get that authorized?
Yeah, so fortunately, we've got access to some, so a couple of different things. We've got our GIST system, which gives us all the land we own. So there's there's often large areas or parts along the route which we'll own of these flight routes, which is great. For other areas, we use our land access agents. So they'll come back and tell us who the owner is and help us arrange like permissions to be able to fly across their land, or take off from their land and carry out the inspection. We try and be as open as possible. So if we are flying near perhaps a farm along the route, we'll go and let them know and make sure that people are aware of what we're doing, and either we'll send out messages like mails to people, or as I say, the land agent will arrange access to that particular site for us so we can fly from there.
Mapping side, what are you finding you're getting sort of plus and minus?
So yeah, it again depends on what your project requires for the accuracy. So if our standard maps, now this is one of our trade secrets, we use the arrow points. So we'll put out the arrow points across the site, and that will give us a fairly standard level of accuracy. Those at the point will give an accuracy up to or down to 20 mil. But then there's a lot of considerations to take in when you're trying to work out the exact accuracy of your drone survey. Things like the RTK drone help with that. So the more factors that you can help reduce your sort of overall errors will help assist increase your accuracies on your survey. For any accuracy, anything that we need really, really accurate, we call in our DAMS team, and they'll be able to put down our ground control for us because they've got equipment which far exceeds what we can do internally within the team. So they'll come down and measure out or put the ground control down on a particular site. And then again, that reduces the error effectively of the error points. So increasing the accuracies of the survey. But it's all done based on the type or what the output of the survey is going to be useful. There's no point getting millimeter accuracy if the survey is just going to be used for somebody to have a look where they're going to park the car.
And you mentioned earlier as well on the webinar, there's a question down below, in sort of accident emergency sort of things, burst pipes, that sort of thing. What sort of infrastructure does that require? But like in terms of equipment, software, response time, because I know we've mentioned it before in the past. What are you currently doing at the moment to combat that?
So yeah, with incident response, the idea is to get up to the particular site and get so all of our incidents are controlled from an incident control room, and it's getting them eyes on the site so that they can understand the sort of what's happening, but really the eyes on to give them the understanding of what's going on at that time. So at the moment, we, as I say, we're doing some streaming trials to be able to stream live data back from the drone. And as long as we've got a good mobile connection, we're able to do that. And it provides us with that link, as I say, sort of almost immediate link back into the incident room for them to be in communication with us to say, no, left a bit, right a bit, let's have a look over here, what's happening in this particular part of the incident. And the more information we can get back to, say, the control room, the better. Yeah, so it's just a powerful way of understanding like the situation, giving you better situation awareness and the impact of like what's being caused by perhaps a burst.
Collaboration and minimum specs of equipment. What sort of cameras, what drones are you currently using, and what would you expect on site to sort of achieve those accuracies and achieve those sort of survey grades qualities?
So yeah, we use all sorts of equipment from the Elios for internal inspections, and we've got a whole sort of suite of DJI drones, and DJI the sort of main go-to drone. And out of the DJI drones, the main go-to drone would be the Inspire 2, sort of fairly multi-purpose. You can do the PR work on it, and you can also do some basic mapping. Not particularly accurately, but it serves a purpose. You can do that mapping job with it. So if you were going to go out and do like a general purpose job, that the Inspire 2 would definitely be the drone of choice. Not only that, the key thing with the Inspire 2 is I find it's pretty cost effective. It's like good value for what you get and the sensors it can carry. But the killer feature, and this is a top tip, it's the battery case you get with it. Being able to charge and discharge so many batteries in the battery case and manage those batteries properly, you're going to be able to perform those flights to a really high safety standard, because you'll be confident on the conditions of those batteries and how they've been treated, and you've not been left with batteries which are fully charged for long periods of time.
Brilliant. I just on the last one as well, actually, the accident. Have you had any examples of where you've been called out to assess an accident or an issue, maybe flooding, etc.?
Yeah, so we get called out to several sort of more of the serious burst incidents, and yeah, being able to provide data. Perhaps they have not been able to locate it immediately, so being able to use the drone to locate that, because the drone, the incident's gone into night. We can be out there first thing in the morning, ready to fly to perhaps assist with the location of that. Again, if it's the burst underwater, using the thermal camera may give us some more information on what we're looking for. So yeah, it's sort of using the drone arsenal to like the best of its capabilities to, in these situations, be able to get that data back.
Using like GIS or AutoCAD, are you having to export any of your photogrammetry data into these systems, or is that for another department?
So yeah, we work with a variety of different teams, and they've got a variety of different requirements. And this again is the beauty of Pix4D, being able to manipulate the data and then export it out into a whole host of different formats is really useful. So some teams will perhaps just need a JPEG image. Others will need the actual GeoTIFF. If that was going into our GIS system, they will have the like fully scaled GeoTIFF. Or we can pull off the contour data, perhaps for the design team to be able to conduct their planning within the Autodesk system. So yeah, we find that there's so many different systems out there, and it's really useful being able to export with Pix4D to all these like systems. So it's good, yeah.
Fantastic. We have mentioned a lot of the positives. Just a quick one. Have you ever had any issues with any negatives of the drones that you've been using? And obviously not near crashes or anything like that, but anything that you'd like to share, just an insight on?
Yeah, I think there's always a sort of our learning piece. There's always, or was traditionally when the drones first started to come out, a bit of apprehension around them. And we've overcome this really by making sure that we like notifying people, making sure they're aware that what we're doing. Because if they know we're doing a pipe route survey, which is going to go past their land, then it's a different conversation you're going to have with that customer than if you just turn up and surprise them by flying the drone past their property. So yeah, it's an awareness piece, getting out there, talking to people, making sure they're aware, and they then can see the benefits of what we're doing and why we're doing those types of survey. So yeah, really, again, communication is key, getting out there, talking with people, informing your stakeholders, keeping everyone in the loop really on what's going on.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, I think we'll call it a day there. I really appreciate everybody joining us. Duncan, thank you very much for coming on board and going through what you're doing over at Severn Trent. It really is so insightful for so many people who are listening, especially for us as well, because obviously you do it day in, day out. So really do appreciate that. All of the questions that haven't been answered, we will make a big effort to get those back to you as soon as possible. Thank you again to Victoria Ross at Northumbria, who obviously organised everything, so really appreciate that. If you haven't already, go check out the Water Institute and subscribe, because it is a really exciting time for them. But yeah, as I say, if you've got any more questions, anything to go on moving forwards, be sure to send them into email on the screen now, I believe, or just info@Coptrz. And we'll try and answer everything in due course. But thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, George. Much appreciated the opportunity, and thanks all. Hope we've answered all the questions.
No, brilliant. All right, guys, thanks very much for joining us. Speak soon. Cheers.